Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
All right, fellas. It's the kids' table at Thanksgiving. Jimmy T, Joey P,
Joey P.
Joey P.
It sounds like if I was a rapper in the early '90s or something.
You might be.
Have you ever been called that?
We could be a rap group right now. Probably not. But
my brother Joel used to be called. You can have the nickname Joey with some people, but
look who it is. Got guest.
He sprinted through the door
down here.
Are you kidding me?
We'll bring him in a minute.
Hey, we just started. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Little off day Gardner report. Celtics Pacers preview edition. I'm gonna be I'm like, like in baseball they have like an opener now. Like some teams do an opener for their pitcher. He's not the starter, he's not the closer, but he'll go like the first frame. I think that's gonna be me, and then when John jumps on at some point, I'll slide over to my normal role.
It's a good comparison.
We're gonna open things up there. We obviously got Bobby and Josue in the building. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody for jumping on. I think we're all a little bit excited. There's been a few off days here. Congrats to the Celtics for earning those days. We watched the Pacers and the Knicks literally beat up on each other for 7 games to the point where the Pacers had to wave the white flag. I mean, that was too bad what happened to Jalen. Sorry, the Knicks had to wave the white flag. It was too bad what happened to Jalen Brunson. Really too bad. I mean, the Knicks, it feels like they've got a lot of the pieces that they need, but health is just as important right now. And they did not have that, certainly, and it went from bad to worse. So the Pacers advance. So we've got Boston, Indy as your Eastern Conference Finals here, which is going to be, I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. I really do. You got two teams that are at the top of the league when it comes to on the offensive side of the ball, high tempo. The Pacers are one of those teams, and I've said this throughout the regular season. They want to run and gun. They want to go. They want to maximize their shots. They don't want to play a lick of defense, although I know we'll get into that later because, Bobby, you're somebody who believes that they actually have improved on that end, certainly since the way things started for them to start the year, which is good because I don't think anyone could have kept up, the so offensively heavy side of the way that they're putting the game. We're going to get a lot into what the Pacers do well, maybe what they don't do so much as well. We'll get into the Celtics, the matchups, X factors. What's it going to take for the Celtics to win? What's it going to take for the Pacers to win? We'll get into all those things. I know Josue and Bobby, you guys are hot on the scent when it comes to being at these practices and talking to the players and Joe and figuring out where these guys are at. So I'm going to throw it to you guys right off the bat. We'll start with Bobby immediately to my right, although I'm in mirror mode. So I got to figure it out. I learned this recently that what I'm seeing is not.
We're both on one side, Jimmy.
Not what I'm watching back. I got to figure that out. But I want to get both your guys' thoughts just going into this. I don't want your predictions yet, but just give me your overall thoughts heading into this one. What you think we can expect to see. Bobby, we'll start with you.
Yeah, obviously disappointed we're not getting New York, Boston because it had the potential to be all-time fun. And with more health on that New York side, a series that New York could win. I don't think the Pacers can win this series, but they do have the possibility of being very annoying. Like, I think the Cavs got a little annoying during that series and then fell apart due to health. The Heat certainly had no health round 1. So it's going to be the hardest series by far that the Celtics have faced here, just because it's a style that forces you to play the way the opponent wants to play. And I think the Celtics have done a pretty good job throughout the year of playing the way they want to play and instilling their style in the game. Indiana, it's tough to not get drawn into that. The Knicks got drawn into it, and they're probably the slowest team in the playoffs. The Celtics statistically are the slowest team in the playoffs right now, and some of that's the teams they're playing. But they are a team that plays on the slow side in general. So getting sped up, maybe having to turn the ball over a little bit more. Certainly rebounding going to be a big deal in this series as a way to slow the game down. They have to be able to manage the pace of this series and find the mismatches on that Pacers side. Certainly Haliburton going to be the guy you want to go at the most there. But there are mismatches all over the place on that defense. And yes, Jimmy, I do think that the Pacers have gotten better in some ways defensively, but they're still bad on that end. So after going against the Cavs, one of the best defenses in the league, the Heat, one of the best defenses in the league, it will be refreshing to some degree to play one of the worst defenses in the league here. But you have to execute. Can't turn the ball over. The Pacers are starting to pressure full court a little bit more here, so you got to be able to withstand that. And you got to get to the rim. I mean, they're going to try to take away the three. They're going to guard you one-on-one a lot of the time. So if you're Tatum, if you're Brown, you got to get downhill and score inside in this series and score a ton. This is not a series where Tatum can do the whole passing thing and be shooting 40% and saying, oh, he's giving you stuff in other areas. This is a series where Tatum has to average 25 plus because the buckets will be there for him.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I would agree with that, Bob. Josue, what you got?
Yeah, no question, man. We need to see efficient Tatum, which would be the first time we've seen it throughout the postseason, if we're being honest, right? I mean, that's been his struggle offensively. I know in that last outing, we got the best offensive performance we've seen throughout the postseason, but something's going to need more of that. And of course, the same can be said about Jaylen Brown, who's been phenomenal. I mean, throughout the entire postseason. I don't think that changes here, but I do think someone like Pascal Siakam, guys like Miles Turner, I mean, their inside outside game, especially with Miles Turner, I think he's sort of the X factor in this series, where I think the Pacers are going to try to exploit that matchup down low. I think this is going to be a series where Celtics will miss Kristaps. Not to say that they can't pull this off without Porzingis, but I think the Pacers take advantage of that. He's not in the middle. I think they take advantage of the lack of rim protection, that resistance. I think they're going to try to test the Celtics in a big way, and of course, I think that establishes their outside presence, their shooting. If they get hot, of course, Haliburton is one of them, one of many. They can keep up with the Celtics' offense. I mean, that's what makes them, in my opinion, good to win more than a game in this series, a couple games at least. I get into predictions, Jimmy, but I just I guess I can't overstate the fact that this is going to be harder than what I think it may look like on paper. These games, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of blowouts, in this matchup. Again, I think not having Porzingis is going to help the Pacers in a big way on both ends of the floor. But I also think depth plays a part as well. I mean, the Pacers have guys that can come off the bench and score in bunches. I think the Celtics are going to need some more of that. We saw it towards the tail end of that series. Peyton Pritchard has been great. Sam Hauser disappeared against the Cavaliers. I know he got away with it. And that's fine and all, but in this series, they're going to need him to step up here. He averaged about 3 points in that series against the Cavs. Overall, his numbers haven't been great, but especially in that last series, man, they're going to need more of that threat, outside threat, shooting threat from their second unit, especially because it gets pretty thin now that Al Horford is a starter, and we know the deeper we get into the series, it wouldn't shock me if Al goes into a similar drought for at least a game or two at some point throughout the series. Again, that's assuming no Kristaps Porzingis. I know he's pretty much ruled out for the first two games. Honestly, I'd be surprised if we see him in game 3. I think there's a good chance the Celtics team faces the Pacers without him. Maybe not the entire series. Maybe he comes back in a game 5, game 6 situation. But for the most part, they can't think about that. They have to go into this series knowing how to, or at least game planning on how to dominate, I think it comes down to the way they defend. I think that would open the floodgates for sure against this Pacers team. But, if the Pacers are on, I think it's not going to be as easy as people think it's going to be. They have to really stick with it, and it has to be all 4 quarters type of effort on the defensive end of the floor.
Bobby, are you surprised that the Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals?
No, because when you go up against a Bucks team that lost Giannis, Middleton for a certain amount of games, Lillard by the end of that series too, you expect them to win that series. I actually had them in that series anyway, just given how bad the Bucks played for a lot of this year. So you expect that, and then for the Knicks to get as devastated as they were by injuries too, it opens the door. But the Pacers took it too. I mean, that was amazing. I've never seen a start like that to a game 7, but really any game, 22 for 27. Their offensive execution and their efficiency on that end is out of this world. And you look at what they've done in the playoffs. They're the best offense in the playoffs by a significant margin. I think they're like 5 points per 100 better than the Celtics, who are number 2. They shoot 65% at the rim. They shoot 50% from mid-range, which is the best in the playoffs. And they get a lot of threes up, too. So I think it's going to be a similar deal to that Cavs series where the Celtics try to take that three-pointer away from them if they can. And that's going to lead them to be a little susceptible inside again. And the Celtics have given up a lot at the basket in these playoffs. I know Joe's argued that it's a little bit intentional to let the other team get away from their threes and to let the Celtics gain the advantage in that area. But the Pacers are pretty good at limiting the other team's threes. They gave up the fewest three-point attempts during the season. I think they do a decent job taking away the rim, too, with Turner in there. So to Josue's point, I don't think this is going to be easy going against this team. They earned their way here. They were extremely competitive throughout the regular season. They add a Siakam, who is, as we talked about this time, a major piece that can give you scoring in those areas that you need if the Celtics are going to try to take away the three here from them. So this is the kind of team you want to see the Celtics play up against a little bit, because these teams that grind it out, that defend great, they ran into a brick wall, right? Because the Celtics are a great defense too. I know they're ranked second, but the Celtics really haven't been a super consistent offense throughout these playoffs. They've had their ups and downs on that end. So to be a team that can outscore them, I know we talked about this a little bit with the Bucks when we were wondering if they could maybe compete with the Celtics a little bit here. The Pacers have a little bit of a formula here to be able to knock the Celtics off a couple of times if they're able to have some better offensive nights than Boston, and they simply just outscore them. We saw them beat the Celtics 133-131 at one point during the year. I know that was a night Tatum sat, but they did it. They beat the Celtics in the tournament. Porzingis was out for that. Porzingis is out now. So if Porzingis was here, I wouldn't give this series much of a chance of going long, because I think the Celtics offense would just be so much better than the Pacers offense at that point. But now that, Horford showed those inconsistent results last round, I don't think this is a Cornet series. And, Wes Tillman, who, obviously reportedly lost his father this week, so it looks like he could be out tomorrow. You're going to be looking at a thin front court here for the Celtics in this series. And, can they get enough out of Horford playing big minutes, playing every other day? I think that's the biggest question by far for the Celtics here. Obviously, the Pacers' biggest question is, can they get enough stops, which is probably the biggest question in this series. But for Boston specifically, Josue, is Horford ready to shoulder the load in this series again?
I think he is. I think he is, but I got to be honest. The deeper
I'm the host
we get
here,
into
bud.
the series, Bobby does that sometimes. I got to be honest. The deeper we get into the series, I think you'll start to see it kind of trail off a bit, And I'm not saying that'll be across the board, I'm not saying he'll go out there and his stat line will be duds, but in terms of being that constant threat from deep, I do think he will cool down at some point, just because he's taking on these starter minutes and taking on a lot and keeping up defensively with guys like Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam. Like he's gonna have his hands full down low, especially with guys, especially when these guys are in transition, and if they get the 3-point shot falling, which is something that Miles Turner, has done throughout these playoffs. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I want to see again how this Celtics team could defend as a team, as a cohesive group. What they do to sort of stop the bleeding when the Pacers are going downhill and guys are hitting shots, and Haliburton's going to have one of those big nights at some point throughout this series. Maybe it's not game one, maybe you see the Celtics benefit off of the extra rest and these guys coming off of game 7, but I don't think the entire series would play out that way. I really don't. I think once these guys settle in, you're going to see a tougher opponent that we've seen throughout the toughest opponent that we've seen for the Celtics team throughout the postseason, for sure.
So there's no doubt that this is going to be the hardest matchup so far for the Celtics, at least in my mind. That's kind of by default, but also you can't sleep on this Pacers team. I've liked the Pacers for a number of years now. Obviously the roster has transformed a little bit. It's not exactly the team it was a couple of years ago, but there's some pieces still there. Obviously Miles Turner's still there. He's amazing.
You've always loved the Pacers, Jimmy.
I've always liked the Pacers. I don't know what it is. Something about them. Something about that color scheme, I think. No, I've liked the Pacers, and I like them now. I'm not picking the Pacers in the series, but I do think that they are going to be a difficult team to, you put it this way, you can't sleep on them. That's what I keep saying about this team, and they've proven it. I think they deserve to be here. They beat a Bucks team that had a really horrible season from the Bucks standpoint, and obviously the injuries caught up to them. Knicks, they caught up too, but the Knicks are a tough as nails team, and the Pacers went down 2-0 to them. Okay. And they could have just whimpered out and lost in 5, like a lot of teams would. They even up the series, go down 3-2, and then they win the final 2 games of that series. And again, I know that players are in and out of the lineup, but the Pacers were dealing with some, health guys too. I mean, Haliburton hasn't been 100% by any stretch. And it says a lot about them that they were able to overcome those odds a little bit and some of those ups and downs throughout the course of the playoffs. So I'm taking them seriously. If I'm the Boston Celtics, you have to take them seriously. Indiana is a tough place to win on the road. That place gets loud. You guys are going to have to bring some earplugs, I think, with you, because that place is going to be absolutely rocking. Not to say that it's not rocking at the Garden. It's hard to win in the Garden too. But for that reason, I think it could be a lot longer of a series than maybe some people think. I see people in the chat saying Celtics in 3, Celtics in 4. You know what I mean? So I just don't see it that way. I do think the Celtics are going to pull this off. The talent is certainly swaying heavily in their favor. Pacers like to get out and run. If you try to get the one thing the Celtics can't do is try to get into a shooting match with this Pacers team. Goes back to what Bobby always preaches: defense. It's if they can clamp down enough, that's going to be the difference. Because I just don't see that with the Pacers. I don't know if they have that ability to sort of clamp down like the Celtics do. And again, it's a little bit of a talent thing. I think obviously with Holiday and White in that backcourt is going to pay huge dividends. With Porzingis in or out of that lineup, I still like the Celtics in this series. Things obviously would change in the NBA Finals. You want to have Porzingis back for that one. And we should definitely touch upon the Western Conference towards the end of the show because that's a really interesting situation going on over there too. But I'm with you guys. I mean, you got to respect this Pacers team. I do think it's going to be one of those home series. I think one of those teams is going to have to win a road game at some point for this thing to really flip. That's just how I feel. I think the Pacers are tough. I really do. It's super important. Put it this way. It's super important for the Celtics to win the first 2 at home. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part where experience should take over, right? And look, you look down the line. Obviously, the Celtics have been here countless times, it feels like. But for someone like Jrue Holiday, it's his second one, And yeah, he has a championship for the first appearance with the Bucks in 2021. But I just feel like someone like that knows that these opportunities don't come around often, even though that has kind of been the case for Tatum and Brown and all that. And of course, I think they've learned from those experiences, and I think they're ready to, show sort of quiet all the noise, which I think Jalen sort of alluded to today, right, Bobby, and saying that, hey, you can't watch the TV without seeing something being mentioned about the Boston Celtics. Are they going to finally do it? Are they going to choke? Are they going to that's the storyline, that's the narrative, but you can't fall into thinking that, oh, this thing, we have to win. We're supposed to win, And I think that's when you see those bad habits from the Celtics that we've seen throughout, but I think they've learned a lot, and I know it's only been like 2 losses, but again, you couple those losses with the experiences beforehand, and I don't see them falling into those same traps. I just think it'll be more of a tactical thing, and Joe Mazzulla, going up against Carlisle as he sees a big hole in that center position without Kristaps. I think he's very confident that these guys can pull an upset. So it'll be interesting because it's these guys don't have a whole lot of experience. Haliburton is his first time in the playoffs. You got to go down the line.
They have nothing to lose.
Yeah, and then at the same time, exactly, Bob. They have nothing to lose. If they lose this, the city's not going to flip on them. You know what I mean? They're happy. Yeah, they're happy with the progress. They don't have that same exactly. They don't have that same kind of pressure. So it'll be interesting.
I'm not worried about the Celtics.
How much experience takes over for the Celtics at some point in the series.
Real quick, I'm not going to do a full read here. I forgot to mention off the top that our show is sponsored. We have some great sponsors, guys. I just want to remind everybody quick. Yeah. Prize Picks. There are guys over there, guys and girls over there. Prize Picks, 100% deposit match with the promo code CLNS on the Prize Picks app. fire up the app, toss on a game that you're going to put on the TV. Get to picking more or less on your guys that you think are going to either play well or not play well. So that's Prize Picks and our good friends over at Game Time, one of our newer sponsors. These guys are unbelievable ticket app right now. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. I used it for the Bruins. I don't want to talk about it, but I did use it for the Bruins. I don't want to talk about how the game went. However, I did use it, and at least I can say that I got basically a free beer out of it because of it. So with that being said, that was a good story. That was the half read, John. I'm going to save the full one for you since you're here later. So we'll welcome in John. I know a lot of people are thrilled that you were able to join us, John. So I'll let you introduce. Let's get your. You know what, John? We got everybody else's opening take, not predictions, but just thoughts going into the series. Let's just get your initial thoughts.
My opening thoughts on the series.
Yeah.
First
opening
of all,
statement, please.
Everyone see My Cousin Vinny?
Of course.
So when he walks into the courtroom and he says, and he points to the other guy and he goes, "Everything that guy said is bullshit." And that's how I feel about everything that Bobby has said so far. I don't even know what it is.
Somehow you nailed it. The chat thinks Bobby is a Pacers fan. So
everything that guy said is bullshit.
I'm actually ashamed to say I haven't seen that movie. I haven't watched it.
That's all right.
Classic. Yeah,
I made a point to watch it.
I've seen the clips so many times that I kind of know what you're talking about. Joe Pesci, right?
It's old.
Yeah.
It's old.
When Belichick referenced it, I was like, I gotta watch this movie.
Oh, we are thrilled.
I really gotta watch that.
I've tried to give the opposition credit in every step of the way because I feel like each of these teams could play the Celtics tough at full strength.
Yeah.
But the Heat completely fell apart. The Cavs, you knew going in, weren't in a good place physically, and I think that's why we all picked 5, and it went that way.
Yeah.
And they got even worse as the series went on. Pacers actually have some guys. Now, is everyone on their team going to get hurt and it's over in 5 here? Maybe. But right now, they're all healthy, and I think they are capable of giving the Celtics a little bit of a series here, not one where they can actually go out and win it. So it's not real in that sense, but that's basically what I've said so far, John, is that, and I think we all feel that you have to.
We all said it. You just can't sleep on this team. Like you could probably sleep on the freaking Heat and basically the Cavs.
Or the Knicks if they showed up with nobody. Yeah.
Right.
Miles Turner is that X factor.
Okay.
I think.
Josue has made his X factor known. We have not unleashed our X factors yet.
Okay. So.
There you go.
So I'll surprise everybody. I agree with Bobby. I think it's going to be extremely challenging. The series. Mm-hmm. I don't get where the Celtics in 5 stuff is coming from.
I see the chat saying Celtics in 3.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any
Porzingis,
chance
the
series is a sweep.
You got to remember, no Porzingis. That's big.
Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. Here I'm going to be the voice of doom and gloom. I'm not. I'm just being realistic. I'll believe Kristaps Porzingis is playing. Bye, Jimmy. Jimmy, your haircut is the first thing I wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to.
It's short.
It's all short. The hair got cut.
It's short.
Yeah, Jimmy. I was like, who let Jimmy's son on the show?
Someone made a comment. I'm like,
I'm getting used to it.
It does look a little different, but I didn't.
It's definitely short. But the good news is, unlike you, John, mine's going to grow back.
Oh, good one.
Oh,
I like it. I like it.
Shit, I didn't see that one coming.
I like it. We got sponsors.
Proceed.
We got sponsors for that. You guys not using graphics, huh? Is that what I'm here for?
We haven't used a graphic yet.
Okay, no one's putting up lower thirds.
No.
That's why Jimmy.
Well, we haven't gotten into any of the actual topics. We just did. Okay, we could have tossed that one.
Just grab ass for 30 minutes.
No, we just got into everyone's initial thoughts. We didn't go down the list of some of these.
Well, so what's funny is
lined up for us, so
my favorite topic was what I think I walked in on, which was Jaylen Brown talking about drowning out the noise. What freaking noise? Like, what are we talking about? And here's the thing.
So nationally, there's been some noise, John.
You know the noise.
Because they're bored. I actually do think what's funny.
Everyone's injured. That's why.
This whole Celtics disrespect thing is hilarious to me. Like, it's not disrespectful to say that the Celtics had an easy path. They did. Like, it's the Celtic, the friggin' I mean, someone put this up, and I'm throwing it up here. Like, the Patriots on their last Super Bowl, yeah, that's what happened. Friggin' Brady versus Bortles, okay? That stuff happens sometimes, okay? This is what you get. You get
But no one used to say, John, oh, the Patriots didn't play anyone.
Yes, they did. In fact, we were so bored talking about the Patriots all like did people just wake up today and start watching sports?
Yeah, but they didn't say it, John, from a standpoint of
it's unreal to me. No, the Patriots, the beginning of the season, you'd be like, I'll see you in the AFC Championship game. No regular season game mattered. They'd play some cream puffs along the way. Shaughnessy's famous tomato cans line, which you got years and years of mileage off of. Everybody were tomato cans.
The march of the tomato cans.
People nationally were talking about how weak the AFC East is, how the Patriots have 6 free wins every year, how the whole AFC is a garbage conference. They would play one game a year and go to the Super Bowl. That was it. I mean, did it make the championships any less enjoyable? No. Tomato cans.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. It happens. So, but I do think the pendulum has swung a tad in the other direction because now I think people are bored and they're looking to nitpick the Giant, to take them down a few pegs. Well, I'm not that impressed with the Celtics anyway. And
that's where I'm coming from.
They're playing that card. So I do think the pendulum swung. Before it was just Celtics fans saying, don't call it boring. Wins are fun. Get it stuck. Go, stop watching. It's been boring, and
you got to be impressed by
tomato cans.
The games haven't been interesting.
The games aren't interesting. There's no intrigue. There's no villains on the other side. And honestly, the Heat team they beat in the first round and the Cavaliers team, once Mitchell went out, don't win 30 games in the regular season.
Teams,
okay?
Right.
They're not playoff teams. They're not even close to playoff teams. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. It doesn't have anything to say. What it is, though, is we're entering this world in which you have no idea who the Celtics are. So I'll say the smart money is revert back to who you saw in the regular season, which is a team that was leagues better than everybody else. And that's who they are. So I do think it's swung in the other direction because they're like, I'm not that impressed, I think they're not. And I think the old narratives are coming out to play. And look, somewhat deservedly so. That the Celtics,
we haven't seen the old Celtics, though, John, and that's what they deserve credit for. I think the old Celtics go 6 with Miami somehow. I think they probably go 6 with Cleveland somehow.
Not
the
with
old Celtics? They went 6 with the Hawks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this roster's different. That was Porzingis got hurt midway, but
it's different.
And
however,
and they're whatever record they are without Porzingis.
Bringing it all the way back around, I agree with Bobby. I think it's competitive because I'm a little dubious that we see Porzingis anytime before Game 5 or later.
But just Porzingis aside, you're not scared of the Pacers, but you respect the Pacers, unlike the first two opponents. Is that accurate or no?
It's not respect. Like, I tweeted this right after it ended. My thought is this. My initial thought right away, the first thing was, good and bad thing about the Pacers is the Celtics can't coast against them because the Pacers just keep coming. Like, they do a lot of things at an elite level, and if you don't take it seriously, they can run you off the floor. They also do a lot of things at, like, what's the opposite of elite? Like, they're horrible at a lot of things. Rebounding, defense, you can absolutely, the Celtics should be able to score at will. So, but Jimmy, you're like, you mentioned last time, you don't want to track meet with these guys. I think it goes back to what Bobby says all the time. Like, lead with defense and let everything else work itself out. Defense is the great separator here. There's 2 great offenses, but the key is if you just play defense in this series to the best of your abilities, recognize you're still going to get some of theirs because they're a really good offensive team. You'll win, but still, I think it's competitive because I think the Porzingis thing's a bit of an equalizer here. Like, what do the Pacers do? This is the greatest misconception of the Pacers, I think. You think it's a bombs away team. The Celtics are a bombs away team. The Pacers led the league in paint points. So when you have your only rim protector not playing, that's a problem. And that's a big burden on Horford. I think the Pacers are going to score buckets. If the Celtics have a game or two that they're not kind of keeping up, or a bad shooting night, they can lose. I don't think it's enough to lose a series, but it's enough to make this interesting for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the part that Carlisle is going to highlight, and emphasize throughout. Attack the paint. Especially in transition. Don't always settle for 3-point shots. And I think Miles Turner can be a problem. Stretching out the Celtics' defense, making Al work, whether it's knocking down 3-point shots or posting up down low. I mean, he will be a constant threat in the series. And if he carries on with this offensive rhythm that he's on, I think he could really be a problem for the Celtics team, and the Pacers could definitely win too. I don't see Porzingis coming back for Game 3 or Game 4 out in Indy. I'd be really surprised. I think the Celtics are going to be really cautious with him, as they should be, and just work with him for a comeback game in the NBA Finals. Maybe a Game 6 or so, maybe, but I don't think it's ideal. I really don't.
And Celtics giving up, as you mentioned, John, 69% at the rim right now in these playoffs, which is the third worst figure. And I know Joe had that defense of like, oh, we'll give that up over threes. But if the Pacers are going to take it to the tune of 50, 60 points, especially in transition, it could hurt you. And again, I don't think all the Cavs baskets that they were scoring there, attacking Horford and putting him in pick and roll and getting Mobley going, I don't think that was all just the Celtics luring them there and trying to take away threes. Like, they executed and got there.
I know, but what do the Pacers do well defensively? What's the one thing they do well, Bobby?
They take away the threes.
They run you off the 3-point line. So there's matchup issues here. Like the things the Pacers do right now, they get to they get a lot of their points in the paint, and you don't have a rim protector, and they run you off the line. They're by far the lowest team in the regular season.
They're the better offense in this series.
By far. And right now, you might argue they're better offense without Porzingis here because he's the equalizer. So it's closer to even without Porzingis than we think. And that's why I think it's going to be competitive. It still wouldn't shock me if the Celtics blew their doors off, because if they really lock it in. But I think there's definitely things the Pacers do here, which, like, just on their own, I think people look at this series like, well, if the Celtics don't play like assholes, they win. Probably. But I still think the Pacers can give you their best game, and the Celtics without Porzingis can play a really good game too. And the Celtics could lose. And I didn't think that was the case in either.
You think the Celtics could lose this series?
No, I think the Celtics can play a good game, and and the Pacers can play a better one. Like, there was no way if the Celtics played anywhere close to their level in the first 2 rounds that they would lose. Zero chance. I think the Pacers can just flat out straight beat you. I also think the Pacers can absolutely fall apart, crumble, and their offense goes to shit, and you beat them by 35-4. I could see a couple of blowouts. Like, this could be one of those series where it's like frustrating because you're winning games big and then losing, by closer margins, and it stays tight games wise.
I'm wondering if the defense will ratchet up on the Pacers side, because they've made it this far. They've got a lot of confidence going into this series. I think we're kind of in the. I also think that we're kind of in the minority, guys, because looking at the Vegas lines, more people think this is going to be a 4 or 5 game series.
A lot of people
they were saying on the radio today, this is the second biggest favorite in the East Finals, behind 97 Bulls over Heat.
Yeah, it's over 1,000, minus over 1,000, I believe, just for the winner of the series. And I think there's only been 4 of those since that time, Bobby. And so, to your point and to what they were saying on the radio, nationally, where the Celtics want to act like they don't get any love, nationally, it seems like a lot of people are assuming that they're going to easily roll in this series. What we're saying is pump the brakes a little bit, not saying that the Celtics aren't going to win, but just that they can't go into it feeling the way Vegas feels about it. Because if they do, the Pacers have the ability to drop 10 points in 30 seconds on you, right? I mean, they can get up and down the court, hit a couple of threes. All of a sudden, you don't want to be in a situation where the Pacers all of a sudden go on a 10-0 run in the fourth quarter and you're down, you're down 8 with 2 minutes to go out of nowhere, because that can happen with this Pacers team. And if you're the Celtics, yeah, of course, you have the ability to score in bunches too, but we've seen this with this team before. They start to get in the ISO mode late in the games. How is that going to change? How is that execution that we've been waiting to see on these late close games going to unfold? Because we haven't been able to see it much. We saw it, I think, in one Cavs game this year, last time. Is that accurate? Where they actually took a little bit of execution down the stretch in a close game for them to pull that one off.
That was a good win. Yeah, Pacers kind of pushed back a little. It was one of those games, and there's been a lot of them this year, and the only crunch time game the Celtics have played this playoffs was like that, where they're up like 10-15, Other team storms back a little bit. It technically gets into crunch time and the Celtics grind it out. But it wasn't really a game that went down to the final basket. And I know Nesmith got a shot at the 3 for the tie, but they were coming back from down double digits at that point. It wasn't like a tit for tat.
Right. I mean, they also traded for Siakam. I mean, I know that Siakam isn't, it's not the equivalent of like a Holiday in terms of that experience, but Siakam's been on a team in Toronto multiple times that has made their runs, been in the playoffs. He's a
champion.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. He is a champion. So, what was it, like a year or two before, prior to Holiday? When did Toronto win?
19. So yeah, 21.
A couple of years. So, I mean, he's a similar addition in that sense where he brings that experience and that veteran leadership.
A championship coach in Carlisle too.
Absolutely. So. Carlisle's a great coach, and so again, not to act like the Pacers are the favorite here, because they're certainly not. But I actually think that this is going to be it has the chance to put a scare into the Celtics team and be a really good series, in terms of, I said this earlier, John, it feels like one of those series where it's like you better win your home games, because I think it's going to be hard to go into Indy with all that energy and momentum. They get the Indy 500 going on the same weekend.
And they've done the same thing twice. They've done the same thing in both series now, and you give them credit for responding to it, as Josue mentioned earlier. But they win that runaway game 1 in against Miami, and then they come on game 2 and just don't show up. And then similar thing against that Cavs team that was coming off of game 7. You just blow the doors off them in game 1. Then you come on game 2 and the Cavs are running out in transition and just having their way with you, and you lose another game at home at that point. I know Joe made a pretty concerted defense of their home record the other day at practice, saying they're 4-2 and they're third out of all the playoff teams. But those are 2 pretty bad losses at home to start each of those series. And it put both of those series in a spot where if the other team took care of business at home, which Cleveland and Miami weren't able to for different reasons there, you're talking about a real series at that point. So you can't, it's easy to imagine the Celtics coming out tomorrow and just rolling over them, right? They're so rested. The Pacers had to just go all out to win that. They play 2 days earlier. They don't even have a full 2 days rest, travel to Boston, all that. But game 2, do you come out and, like Jimmy said, really take advantage of that home court? That was something they said they were going to do better this year. And they have 2 real letdowns at home to this point. So, again, just something to watch in this series. I don't think we think that the Pacers are going to come out here and beat them, or that they're this massive threat. But you don't want to sit here and say, oh, the Celtics are going to sweep them. And then, 4 days from now, the Pacers play this great game and you're like, what happened? There's certainly tools that the Pacers have here to make this competitive. And maybe it is another 5-game series. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the way it goes.
I wouldn't be surprised. There's a side of me that thinks like Celtics will roll. But
I think I would be pleasantly surprised if that happened.
But but I do think it's going to be a little bit
I don't know if I think
trickier in the early going. And I could easily see it 2-2 headed back to Boston. And at that point, I'm not sure what's going on, but we'll see. I mean, there's definitely things that again.
Well, we continue to judge them by the old version of themselves. And like Josue and I talked about today, they're not that anymore. It doesn't seem like.
Well, it says who?
That's the thing. I need to see it against a better opponent, which I think we're going to find out now.
I don't think that look, I know everybody wants to. I know everyone wants to. It would feel good to do it, to go out there and be like, wow, no traces of the old asshole Celtics. Okay. But I don't know that you can say that given the competition, because again, I still think they played 4 subpar games out of their 10. Like, the 2 in the losses, and again, Miami had to shoot at a historic clip even to win that one. A win against Miami, and then the closeout game against Cleveland up until that teeny little 3-minute stint where they're like, okay, let's be serious. So I've seen them be not serious for the better part of 4 games in the playoffs. That's not a good ratio. That's 40% of games. I'm sorry. And yeah, look, they're human. You're going to get bored, but like, I don't think they did enough in rounds 1 and 2, dispatching these 2 teams. I don't think people are fully grasping how ridiculously bad those teams were when all was said and done from an injury perspective. And again, Mitchell goes out literally halfway through. He goes out in game 3, and he's without him in 4 and 5 and without Allen. That's a 30-win team. That's not a playoff team. They did
You're
not.
missing Porzingis though, which
I
is
know,
a
but
factor
still,
here.
without the Celtics, without Porzingis, are still a top of the table team. These two teams they beat are not playoff teams. When at the end of this year, by the end of the series, neither one was remotely close to a playoff team. They were not. Right. So I can't. I'd love to. I'd love.
Neither were the Knicks though.
Yeah, and the Pacers. Who knows what the Pacers are? It's the closest thing to a real team we've seen. At this point. So I don't really know. I mean, what you have to take into account.
The East is so bad compared to the West.
Well, you have to take into account.
I think a lot of it.
Think about it.
A lot
between
of it too.
4 and 8, but 4 and 8 in the regular season is a freaking 4-game separation between 4 and 8. So there's really no difference. So the healthiest team is probably the best team, and right now the Pacers are probably the healthiest in that 2 through 8. 2 through 8, it was a 4-game difference. The 7 teams there packed in between 4-game separation. So the team that was healthiest is probably the biggest challenge at this point. And I guess by default, it's the Pacers because everyone else was a mess.
Yeah.
That's how bad it's been. So even without Porzingis,
I just think we can't overlook the fact that the Knicks had 5 players out, like 5
you
rotation
cannot.
guys. Like,
yeah.
I think that's the part that people sort of forget because it's easy to forget. I mean, when's the last time we saw Julius Randle uniform? These guys have just been doing this without them until they ran out of steam. I don't. So again, I want to credit the Pacers, especially because the second half, or at least like the second half,
they might not deserve it, Josue. You might be right.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I just feel like
they might not deserve that much credit because that Knicks team was
they couldn't close out. Yeah, they literally. There's been times where they couldn't close out, and man, they had me fooled. I'll be honest. When the Knicks came out strong in the second half, all of a sudden it's a 7-point game. I'm like, oh well, here we go. Here comes Indiana showing who they really are. But then they came back. I mean they fought. You can also talk about Brunson not finishing the game as well, but I don't know. A lot of things fell in their favor. And if you're the Boston Celtics, you have to dominate. You have to show them that hey, this is where your luck runs out. You have to really send that message. And I think a big part of that is winning both in home and then taking at least one over in Indy. I think that's what it takes. I think that's what Celtics fans would love to see. That's like best case scenario in this series without Kristaps. Because I do think not having Kristaps is gonna hurt these guys in a way that it could cost them 2 games. I just think the Celtics have enough so that they don't win 3. I don't know. I'd be really surprised this thing goes 7.
You're probably right, but
to John's point though, real quick, and Grandy threw this out there: the 6 best teams in the league, net rating wise, the last 30 games of the year were the Celtics.
Pacers
Nuggets,
were 5th,
Wolves, Thunder, Pacers 5th, and the Mavericks 6th. So the teams that finished the year strongest kind of rose to the top, and the Pacers certainly got breaks. Yeah. Celtics got breaks too, but they took advantage of them and they played well.
The other thing, I think the wild card here on this is the Pacers played well down the stretch, as you said, based off of net rating in those last games. And again, you had the Sixers playing the majority of that, almost the entirety of it without Embiid, and Giannis was out, as well, for a stretch there. So the Milwaukee was obviously kind of beat up, and the Knicks had been dealing with stuff all year long. So you'll excuse them a little for not being in that group. If they got healthy in time for the playoffs, I think it would have been a different story. But they did that without Haliburton anywhere close to pre-hamstring injury Haliburton, which is still really weird because it was a hamstring injury and we saw it. I thought he literally tore his groin and everything else in between when he went down, because that was against the Celtics, that hamstring injury, right? And it looked awful. He's not even his pre and post splits are. He's not even close to the same guy. If he ever if he just wakes up and is that guy, that's another dimension to that team. If he's not, I don't know but he hasn't quite been. He's been better in the playoffs, I think, but he really wasn't that same guy at all that he was prior to. I mean, we're talking about him in the, if not MVP, all NBA, he was legit the way he was playing.
Does he scare you, Jimmy?
I was just gonna say, Bobby. He's had a few of these in the playoffs, but it comes and goes. Like there's some games where he's just flat. It happened in the first round, and at least one game against the Knicks in this past series.
Does he scare you, Jimmy?
Haliburton, I think
Yeah.
He's not a 1A. He's not in the way that like Luka scares me, or like
even Mitchell
or Mitchell. Yeah, no, he doesn't scare me that way. I think maybe it's more because he hurts you a lot of playmaking that he does, and maybe you don't see it the same way. Like he's not going to fill like the points up the same way as some of those guys are, but he gets his team involved. I mean, that's the one thing you have to say about him is he gets his guys going, he gets them in gear, he knows where to find his players, and he carries himself well out there. He's got a lot of confidence. Yeah, there was a stretch during the regular season, John. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he was the hottest ticket in town. And then he got hurt. That was the time right when we went down that lower body.
Break.
It was like a hamstring or something like that.
It was against the Celtics. He did that split.
Celtics. He did a dead split, and we were like,
yeah,
"Oh my
exactly.
god,
yeah.
he tore everything."
Yeah. So I'm glad that he's back and back playing, obviously. But that was like the hot streak for him. He doesn't scare me in the way some of those other superstars do. But I still think that he's capable of hurting you. Maybe not by himself. Again, I think he does have to rely on some of his other guys. Siakam. Who's the guy that I'm blanking on his name, the center there now?
Turner.
Yeah, Turner, the guy who's been there.
Turner's
kind of the heart and soul of that team. Josue says X Factor. I say heart and soul. He is the guy that the fans have rallied around over these years. He's been a part of a couple different makeup of this team.
They chose him over Sabonis.
He's like the guy that everybody wants to see, win.
I just think they couldn't move him.
Huge
Sabonis was the only thing that could get you something else.
That's a mean way to put it, John, but all right.
Right. I don't think that.
They tried to trade.
It's probably accurate because he was in so many rumors.
And John Collins, year after year,
that's fair because they were going to probably trade him.
I wanted the Celtics to trade for him before they got Al back. I wanted them to get in the mix for that. But,
I was part of that
Hayward thing. Yeah.
I was part of that too. Yep.
That was the deal Danny refused to make.
Yes.
Man, that feels like so long ago now.
That was TPE, that was the deal he refused to make.
The TPE era.
We've been doing this a while now, but
oh my god! Remember what we used to get mad about? Guys, be happy. I'm just getting mad at fans now. There's not much.
One of my favorite lines was like, "Guys, the TPE from John, right, is nothing. Okay, it's nothing. You're not gonna just turn it into this magical player who's gonna solve all your problems.
Would you like a TPE? You need stuff with it.
Like, they got another TPE out of it.
We have 14
I think people were like, you just traded TPE for a really good player. Done. The money matches up. Like, no, you need stuff.
The clock is ticking. You got to cash in this TPE, guys. What are they going to do?
It's kind of crazy how it went for them because they were going to trade him for Hayward. They were probably going to trade him for Ayton because they had the Ayton deal signed. It was on paper. And then the Suns matched it.
Could have done it.
But here they are with a really good-looking team into the future. And they might say Mathurin here, which is worth mentioning. I know he went out in January.
Yeah.
But he's a really good player.
Man. Talk about a shooter.
He was good. That's a big
3-point champ.
It's a loss you got to consider here. They traded Bruce Brown for Siakam. That was a real loss. They have no perimeter defenders. And so we do have to mention, I can't believe we're this far into the show without mentioning him, but Nesmith.
I was just thinking it.
8-8. 19 points. John, I know you were a bigger Langford fan, but you were a big Nesmith fan too, and look at him go.
I think that was Sherrod. He's a Nesmith
I
fan
did
too.
not.
You were more a fan of just giving them a chance.
I just wanted them both to get a chance, but if I was betting, a betting man, I thought I thought Nesmith, truthfully, fooled everybody with that one little stretch of shooting for a short period of time in a shortened season with Vanderbilt, that 1 year where he just shot a really high mark from three, and then he got here and we were like, he's not a good shooter.
That. Yeah.
It's like, he's not a lights out shooter. Like, this isn't what I paid
he shot
for.
Like 50%
and then he did, but I thought it was just I thought they got
this year.
I thought they got a fake, bill of goods, off of him. And I thought Romeo, because he had a pedigree and he was like a top high school player, if you could ever just get that friggin' expression off his face and had someone who can motivate him, He had a
He
shot.
had Romeo's motor in Langford's like skill.
You need
my
Neesmith's
God.
motor. Yes.
You'd have Kawhi Leonard.
But he, honestly, I'm so happy for him. I really am. Because he made something of himself. He's like really useful. I wanted him to be useful here. I never thought he would. Yeah.
8-8, 19 points in a game 7, man. Not easy. And MSG.
Look at this. This is a throwback show. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a day oneer right there.
Right here. TPE talk and Romeo Neesmith.
We're in the bubble now.
If you can quote that era, you've been with us since day
Someone
one.
sent a tweet that everyone was posting the Porzingis bike videos the other day, and everyone was like, well, one guy was like, bike watch, and I was like, you must have been watching a long time to remember bike watch.
Bike watch.
Yeah, that's right.
Great one.
Bike watch. Yeah.
Bike watch.
I love how Tatum just stopped doing that. We were like, that's the weirdest thing ever.
We bullied him out of it.
We bullied him out of it.
We literally bullied him out of it. 100%.
That was the strangest thing.
They were like, look, Jason, they're making fun of you again. Yeah, that's
Jason,
probably what happened. Marcus showed him.
Teammates. They say you don't even know your teammates' names.
Or maybe somebody just went up to him and like, dude, this looks bullshit. You know, like, you gotta stop, man.
Yeah, but you know it probably came from someone that's not around the team often, and was just like, wait, does he always do that? And then they realized, wait, this is
remember John just left the show and rode the bike. It was a great maybe Tatum saw that and was like, oh yeah, that
you got a half mile then.
And there's no chance any of them saw any of these shows, and that's fine. But that's fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Marcus, the guy who showed Marcus the clip of the show showed Tatum the bike stuff, and he's like, yeah. It really was weird. It was really, really weird stuff, but that's fine. We're well past bike watch at this point.
But is Neesmith a factor in the series? I was going to ask.
Here's why he is a factor. You know what the Celtics stupidly do when they play the Pacers? They target him. He's a good defender. Like, he's annoying. Tatum did not have success trying to go one-on-one against Neesmith last time at all. And they kept going to it, thinking they had a matchup there. The only thing that worries me with the Celtics on offense is instead of just going with the flow, thinking they've got matchups everywhere and really stalling out. And I don't think Neesmith is a guy you attack. Like, sure, you know, he can get in foul trouble. He's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. Here's the thing. All the people out there who think Tatum never gets a call, yes, have him attack Neesmith all day long, because I guarantee Neesmith's going to get fewer calls in that scenario. He's not a friend of the refs. He gets called on ticky-tack stuff, but he friggin' competes, man. He's not easy to get around. He moves his feet.
High motor, high energy.
He's a it's not the matchup they think it is.
Skin. Doesn't he kind of get under their skin a little bit?
And I would agree with this, and this is what bugged me last series. He couldn't get around Strus. This is what I was killing Tatum for. He couldn't get around Strus.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you saying?
And Aaron's inspired. He's ready for this matchup.
No, I feel like Neesmith gets under their skin a little bit. Maybe because he's so reckless. He's probably like headbutting them accidentally like 14 times. But I feel like he's one of those guys.
He's the kid that they were scrimmaging against and having their way with. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's part of that. That's part of it as well. It's like, hey, we're not going to let this dude beat us. So I think there's some of that as well. You know, some chirping going on, and good for him. You know, I think the fact that Joe was so short with the whole like, what do you think of Neesmith question today was because he's going to be a problem this series. He's like, I'm not trying.
Wait, what did Joe say? He didn't like that question?
No, he just gave the classic. It's good for him. Like, in other words, like, I'm not going to gush over this dude who's not on our team anymore. You know,
right.
You should. It's the Eastern Conference Finals.
You should.
Yeah, but he hates that. He hates that.
That's just such normal things to do. It's such a normal thing to do. Like, someone just got to tell Joe, like, that's a really obvious, easy thing to do. A guy played for you, and you traded him, and he's doing well elsewhere. The natural response is good for him.
He didn't leave. He didn't play for Joe.
Yeah,
Joe was his assistant. Joe trained him the whole way.
Joe was there. Yeah. Oh, you think that's what it is? Is that what it is, Jimmy? Is that why Joe's not claiming him? He's like, that's not my dude.
Yeah, maybe.
If anyone was Joe's dude, it was him, because he was the developmental coach and he coached Pritchard and Neesmith. So maybe that makes it extra weird.
He's probably the only guy who talked to them.
Yeah,
it's probably just some mind games. You know, Joe's playing a little mind game.
Yeah, because Joe had no idea he was going to be head coach the following year.
Remember, Bobby, we had Neesmith on the show, and I kind of like tried to ask him whether Tatum even knew his name.
That was a great interview. I love that one.
That was with the New Balance interview.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. He's a really good guy.
I'm a big Aaron fan. I love the guy, and the trade made sense for both sides. So
It did.
It did.
Is it because he did that interview?
Yeah.
No,
I feel like Bobby.
Bias there.
Bobby
I like him.
Yeah, Bobby will love players if they like give him, if you give him.
No, I liked him as a draft pick. I really did, and then you didn't like what you saw, as John said, when the results started flowing there. But it was a weird year. Remember, like the draft was in November. They didn't have camp.
It was the congested season. Yeah.
Shout out to Pritchard, who actually came out and played well that year. I think he just from all the experience he had, but it was a rough start for Neesmith, and he probably needed a fresh start to some degree. So there's certainly no regrets there. But
he just always seemed overwhelmed.
Oh yeah,
in the end game, even on the side sometimes when people kind of joking around, it sounded like he was just trying to absorb everything, but just in his head a lot of the times. And yeah, I mean, sometimes that's what it takes for a player, just a fresh start elsewhere. That thing in their head where it's like, man, like I didn't think that I could be traded. Like, wait, what? What do you mean I'm traded? Like that shock value. I think there's something to that for some players where they go to the next stop and they're like, okay, like I have to make this work, or it's a seamless fit. When they obviously are hurt in one way, but also saying, okay, well at least a team does want me, and this is a fresh start, not as much pressure, situation like the Pacers compared to a team like the Celtics that's chasing a championship. So yeah, I think it all came together for him.
Yeah. Did you guys talk about any actual basketball earlier, like key to the series? You guys did your X factors?
No, we haven't done. We took, first of all, yes, we did talk actual basketball, but we did not hit on the actual lower third stuff that we have here. So if you want,
I'll just throw it out there before we wrap. Let's get into some just series prediction sort of stuff. So let's go around the horn. Your key to the series, Bobby, is what for the Celtics to do?
I think it's the depth, the bench minutes here, because obviously if you're Indiana, you need to survive when Haliburton's off the floor. I think they were like plus 6.7 with him on compared to off this year, which was like in the 84th percentile. Celtics were great during the year, plus 12 without Tatum there. So that bench has been a strength for Boston. In this series, is it going to be? Last series was a great Cornet series. This one, not really. So do you go to Tillman at a certain point when he's back and available? Do you go to Brissett here, who's a former Pacer? You're going to have to try to find some minutes there from depth guys.
By the way, John, this is not the first time he's mentioned Luke, but go ahead, Bob.
And Hauser's been better than I thought in the playoffs, 44% from three. Doesn't feel like he's made a major mark so far, though.
He hasn't made any
way. Pritchard's been fantastic.
He disappeared last series. I didn't even know Hauser played.
Yeah, he
That's what I'm saying. So, Indiana might have the edge there in this series, and can they actually weaponize that? Can those bench minutes?
I did not think Bobby got. I just didn't think Bobby was going to get me right there with that Luke stuff.
With the Luke, oh man, that train's
Obi Toppin
going to show up.
They have an athletic bench. So
Obi Toppin played the series of his life.
Luke
Jackson's physical, versatile.
Play. Luke should not play.
But who's gonna?
Anybody, literally anybody else.
Go small.
You might have to go small.
Tatum at the 5. Tatum at the 5.
Practice. That might happen, John. That might happen.
That last game against the Pacers, I didn't think there were any Tatum 5 minutes this year off the top of my head, but I saw someone post a video today. He did play a little bit in that last Pacers Celtics game at the 5. They went 5-0. Yeah. So we're going to have to see it in this series. I don't think there's any way around it. If you play Horford 40 minutes a game in this series, that's something that could actually put you in trouble of going 6-7 games here.
Yeah, the unathletic bench. I mean, the athletic difference on the bench here scares me a little bit.
TJ McConnell is really good.
I'm surprised Jimmy hasn't talked about TJ nonstop here.
My X factor.
Oh yeah, that's your dude.
Your X factor.
If you want to jump to X factors,
we'll get to X factors in a minute. Key to the series, Josue. Key to the series.
Key to the series for the Celtics. Protecting the paint, rim protection. I mean, I think that's the part that without Kristaps, the Pacers can really keep up with the Celtics offensively. I mean, we know who they are. Overall, one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. But I think when the Celtics are at their best defensively, it's gonna cause issues for these guys, and they're gonna resort to trying to get high percentage shots. And and if the 3-point shots fall on guys like Haliburton, even Miles Turner had a huge game against the Knicks from behind the arc. Like that, when that stuff happens, I think that's where Celtics could really be interested. Yeah, I mean, possessions are going to be important as well. I don't know if the Celtics I mean, I don't know if the Pacers, in terms of winning the rebounding battle, I think it adds to the issues for the Celtics if that happens, but I don't think it's something that will really play a big part. It's just more about how many additional possessions can these guys come up with when the Pacers are going downhill and they're in their bag, because that stuff's going to happen. They're going to go on their runs. They're going to, it's going to be important to see how the Celtics respond to that. But rim protection, I feel like can be an issue for these guys as the series goes on and there's no Kristaps. I think that hurts.
Jimmy?
So for me, I don't want to confuse people with, I'm not saying play slow. I hate when they play too slow. But I do think that they need to avoid getting into a back and forth, up and down with the Pacers. I don't think that's what they want. I think they need to actually instill a little toughness. I'd love to see Holiday and White just get up and in Haliburton and just take him out of this series. I don't mean hurt him. I just mean just eliminate his ability to do much. And we've seen it. We've seen Holiday. We've seen some really good hard glimpses of Holiday so far in the playoffs. This would be another really good one for him. But I really want to see the Celtics slow it down a little bit. Maximize their possessions, but just don't get into the back and forth with Indy, because that's what Indy wants. Indy wants to dance. They just want to prance around and dance and shoot and score and get back and do it again, back and forth, back and forth. They don't want to get down and dirty on the defensive end of things. So
you know what it is too? They're going to try to hide Haliburton on Drew. So Drew's got to take advantage of
them. They can try
him.
whatever they want. Yeah, they can try whatever they want. The Celtics, I've said this before too. The Celtics are the big bad wolf here. The Celtics don't play to what the Pacers want. The Pacers are forced to try to figure out how to stop the Celtics. That's how this series should be played.
Yeah, for me, it's I said it earlier, but defense.
Defense.
Seriously, in this series, again, the great equalizer is you can play defense, they can't. So how do you? What's your greatest advantage here? Like, don't get into like we're all stars and like I let Tatum cook and they're both good offensive teams. What you guys can do is defend. So lock them up, especially on the perimeter, and lock those guys up. Don't give them space. Play aggressive. Don't do stupid shit where you concede certain things. Like, just play defense. Defense, I think, wins it as always. And again, that's the great equalizers. The Celtics can play both. A lot of teams cannot. And this is the greatest advantage they have here is on the defensive end and the ability to make things tough. They lock it down. That's going to make it easier on offense. Turn defense to offense, and that's how they're going to get going. So take defense seriously early. Don't go out there and just be like, we're awesome and we're going to, just let our offense do the talking. I don't think that that's the case. I will say offensively, though, I mentioned this earlier, don't get caught matchup hunting all game long. Move it. Don't stagnate. That's going to drive me freaking insane. So don't do that. Switching gears to the Pacers. What can the Pacers do? We're going to start with Jimmy. What can they do? Give the ball to TJ McConnell?
The Pacers can stay healthy, first of all, unlike any of the other teams that the Celtics have had to play. They can't afford to lose anybody.
Tell him, Jimmy.
Honestly, the Pacers have to ride this wave of momentum that they're on. They have to ride this young, careless energy that they have. And they have to pretty much, this in-game momentum is going to carry them to a couple wins, I think. That's like something that I think is going to happen to them. I think they're going to get a couple of wins at home off of the energy that they kind of feel. Just watching the Pacers game, especially in the playoffs here, they're high energy. They get going fast. You can tell they really, really enjoy each other and enjoy playing with each other. And I think that they can score in bunches. So it's Celtics to slow it down. If they don't, the Pacers need to take advantage of that. They actually do need to maximize their possessions. That's really what they need to do. And they've done a great job of that this year. I think they led the league in field goal percentage. So it's not like they're taking bad shots. They're taking a lot of shots and they're figuring out ways to be effective. And you guys already talked about their ability to score in the paint. I think that's a great idea for them. Somebody had said it earlier. I don't know who it was, but we just talked about the fact that it's not a good Cornet series. Porzingis is out. We've seen some limitations with Horford, especially last series against the Cavs. It's going to be in their best interest to attack the paint, whether they get to the line or not. So I think that's how they're going to be able to compete in this one.
Josue?
Yeah, same. Attacking the paint, just trying to collect fouls from the Celtics. I think that's going to be a big part of what they do, and in establishing that, I think you're going to see them start spraying that ball out to 3-point shooters. Guys that can knock them down. That's guys that can get hot, like Haliburton, for example, to the point where that could carry into the end of the game. Especially in the second half where he's done that throughout these playoffs. I think their bench, is could play a part in this one as well. I think they have to find that consistent production from the second unit, and I don't think they're gonna have problems with that. I really don't. I think it'll be interesting to see what the Celtics bench look like outside of Payne Pritchard, which I talked about a little bit before you came on, John. How Hauser just disappeared against the Cavs, and I don't think he can get away with that in this one. I think the Celtics need something out of Hauser, offensively. Coming off of that bench, because let's face it, after Pritchard, after Hauser, it gets really, really thin. I mean, they just don't have guys that can put up points, if we're being, completely honest with the Celtics team. And I think when it comes down to it, you're going to want other guys to step in defensively. You can have reinforcements. I wouldn't mind seeing Tillman at some point in this series just to see if he can gather stops, if Luke doesn't pan out. Which I think he might have a tough time in this series. So yeah, I think just attacking the Celtics, trying to get to the free throw line, establishing their inside presence with guys like Siakam and Miles Turner will be a part of their game plan for sure. And on the defensive end of the floor, just keeping guys in front of Tatum and Brown, trying to rattle one of these guys or both of them into poor shooting nights. I think that's a big part of what's going to go into them putting together a win. To start off, especially in Boston. I think it's going to be really hard for them to steal one of these games.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Bobby, and I'll give you yours. I'm going to say, again, what I said earlier. Pacers' key, I think, is trying to run the Celtics off the three-point line and make their offense play the way you want them to play instead of the way they want to play. I think if the Pacers can't defend straight up, but if they can get the Celtics if they can alter the shot profile to their liking, they might be able to win the math game here. So I'm going to go all Joe Mazzulla on you guys. I think the Pacers have to play the numbers game a little bit with the Celtics here and concedes. And actually, here's the thing. And that's what always bugged me with the Celtics conceding things. When you're physically better than the other team, you shouldn't concede things and do Mickey Mouse stuff and try to, whatever. You should just play them straight up and aggressive and just bend them to your will.
Well, guess what Joe said today? You got to live with certain stuff.
Like what?
Certain shots.
Things that they do well. Yeah. Things that Pacers going to get naturally. You have to live with certain things. And
I think you're going to live with like Nembhard being wide open. You're going to live with guys like that.
I hate that, but I'm saying from the Pacers, I think the Pacers need to play that tactic. I hate when the Celtics do it, but I think the Pacers need to play that tactic and actually try to move the numbers game in their favor. Do what they do and defend that 3-point line. Make the Celtics take different shots. Force those guys, and again, force Tatum and Brown to take it into the interior. Maybe not Brown as much. Force Tatum to take it to the hole. And take shots where as opposed to just letting guys, especially, you want Holiday trying to, go at people or as opposed to just camping out at the 3-point line. You want to run White off the line there. So if they can do that, if the Pacers can manipulate the Celtics a little bit into playing the type of offensive game the Pacers want the Celtics to play, I could see that being problematic. Bobby?
Yeah, a lot has to go right here. I think the biggest one is just Porzingis being out the whole series. Like, that'll open the door, and then they have to set the tone with their pace. They have to establish how the series is going to be played, and that's fast and frenetic, keep their turnovers down, force the Celtics into some turnovers, and just find different ways to get the shot advantage. Like you said, John, with the math there. They're going to have to shoot more, get more threes up. That's all going to be a factor here. But it does come down to, Josue mentioned Siakam being great. Like I always say, draft the players in the series here. And right now, it's Tatum, Brown. You're probably throwing in like Derek White there to some degree before you get to Haliburton and Siakam. You got to, if you're Siakam, like really rank yourself up the hierarchy of this series. Like you got to play better than Brown. You got to play better than White, certainly. And you got to be right there with, Tatum, and Haliburton's got to come up big too here. It always a lot of the time comes down to the best players in the series. And in this series where Tatum's averaging 32 and 11 against this team during this year, it's going to be hard for Haliburton to be the best player in the series. Siakam has struggled mightily in that Brown matchup in the past, as we remember here, going back to some of those playoff series. It's an uphill battle for Indy here, and that's why they're the underdogs they are. But Porzingis being out for the whole series would help a lot. And then shoring up some of the weaknesses that they would have in this series. Josue mentioned the rebounding and that pace. It's got to be there. They got to really just play harder than the Celtics. And White was talking about that today, like how the Celtics would really try and emphasize being that harder playing team in this series, because it almost comes natural to the Pacers. Like they're so used to the hustle style.
Yeah. They're a little they make it up as they go. They're kind of all over the place, but they're gonna come at you, and that's the thing. Is like, we got to match their energy. We got to make sure that we're matching their energy out there.
You can't be in that position.
Can't do that. Can't have we didn't match their energy sound bites after. I think there's going to be at least one of those games, and that I'm already mad about it. So we'll see.
Like
we'll
Jalen.
See. Huh? We'll see. Yeah, it's a little Jalen. But I think I'll jump out here. I'm not even talking X factor. My prediction on who's going to be the man for my conference finals MVP prediction is Brown, who I think is going to have a monster series.
Nice.
I think he's going to carve them up.
He's been
because
so good.
Yeah,
I think that he's going to carve them up. So I expect big games from Brown. Predictions. We all have the Celtics, but in how many games? Around the horn. Jimmy.
6.
Yeah, 6.
I think the Celtics win the first 2, Pacers win the next 2, and then Celtics win the game 5 at home, and then somehow they just turn into NBA Finals ready mode, and they just win on the road game 6.
Bobby?
2-2, game 5. Wow.
Bobby?
Yeah, I'll go 6 as well.
6? Josue?
We did this again, guys. Damn it. Yeah, I got Celtics in 6. I think they steal one in Indy, and they close it out in Indy. Yeah, I think that's how it's gonna go. Again, with no Porzingis. No, yeah. I know. I was gonna say something else, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
I'm
again with no Porzingis.
Yeah.
If Porzingis comes back, then they can wrap this up in 5. But I think it's 6.
I said Celtics in 7.
Okay.
Because I do think it's
possibly.
Does Porzingis come back for game 7?
One, because I was bored and I figured I'd say something different. Also, I just don't see it being a runaway in 5, though it would not surprise me. And I don't think Porzingis is going to play for a while. I don't think the news feels encouraging. I don't think what he's doing
doesn't look good.
I don't think what he's doing remotely resembles a person even close to starting to resume basketball activities. He's not even at the same. He doesn't even look like, and again, who knows? In the back room when the cameras aren't on, he might be doing some shit and they put him out there and it's all subterfuge and it's meant to be throw people off the scent. Of course, that's always possible. There's gamesmanship in the playoffs for sure. But to our, untrained eye, or just what we're seeing when we're out there and you guys are at practice, he looks like he's just kind of still like week 1,
Jalen exactly. He's staying engaged mentally, but he's just not there physically, right?
I know exactly, Dirk, and that's the thing. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it. I tell you this. I jump off this bandwagon really friggin' fast. I might jump back on. You do. But I'll one of those asshole games and I go flying off of it, and it's not fair. We watched Minnesota absolutely choke away a 2-0 lead after winning 2 on the road to Denver, and then Anthony Edwards start complimenting the other players, and they looked cooked, and they turned it around. So yeah, a lot can happen in a series.
Wild.
A lot can happen in a series. Then you watch Jokic and the Nuggets put up 70 in Game 6, and you're like, never again. And then a lot can happen. I think we are obviously extremely hard on the Celtics because we watch them all the time.
I think they're gonna.
We watch them all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna freak out, but it is frustrating when you feel it coming.
You've allowed for 3 losses in this series, so you're already prepared for like 3 horrible.
I have. We're bringing this guy on the stage to close the show. He's not gonna show his face. Hi, Amit. Amit.
Who we got?
Amit, you there?
Amit.
Oh, is he
Ahmed's not gonna
shy?
talk.
Come on, are you shy?
He hates us. Right
Ahmed, come out. Can Ahmed come out and play?
Oh wait, you guys put me on.
Yeah, we put you on.
He said he was passed out.
No,
he put his headphones on. Like, what? What's going on?
Hey, Ahmed,
He's focused on something else.
Do we get to see you?
No.
All right, so we're gonna sing happy. We're gonna sing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. We're all different synced up. Jimmy, lead it.
Happy birthday, dear
Ahmed.
The greatest producer in the world.
Greatest producer in the world.
Happy birthday to you. There you go.
I like
this
it.
Isn't fair, man. You're the only one that can sing.
Also, we're all out of sync, so we just let Jimmy take it because he can sing.
Take it, boys.
I kind of like
that
it.
was
We're
a
out of
great
sync.
one.
Yeah.
Ahmed, I'll see him at Hunters on Friday. I think he's gonna skip the game at Indy.
I love Hunters. I'll be there.
We're doing a game 3 preview party at Hunters the night before.
don't announce that. We have a bunch of people pulling up.
Hey, wear your hard hats. Hard hat entry. Hard hat, you get in for free if you show up with a hard hat.
Cover. Yeah.
Yeah, no cover. Yeah, give you a VIP.
I thought Ahmed would pop on the screen, but no.
There was no chance he was doing that, dude.
We're gonna celebrate soon.
He wants to. He
doesn't want to get stopped in the streets like we do.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to lay low, you know.
We tried anyway.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ahmed, a sincere happy birthday from everyone on the Garden Report and at CLNS Media. The man who makes this place run. He can't even. Ahmed's so underrated. He might be overrated at this point.
That's a good point.
He's that important. Yes, Ahmed is the producer.
Ahmed.
He keeps everything running.
That's what it is.
I kind of like.
Yeah, you can go.
Fine,
all right, you can go. Back to your producer cave.
Back to the cave, right? Ahmed's in my basement right now. He's just churning out graphics.
14 screens. Yeah, he's just got graphics and yeah.
Yeah.
He got the cake though, right? You sent him that cake. Memes. That's good. That was nice.
You know, it'd be nice if Joseph was watching. It'd be nice if he threw Ahmed a little party, maybe a little off-season party. Maybe all of us, something like that. You know,
no pressure.
Yeah. We call him Nick Grossbeck. That's what we call him.
Yeah, Nick Grossbeck. Loosen up the purse strings.
Jeez, Nick.
No,
Nick
we just gave Ahmed a raise because he basically is two people. So we decided to pay him like one full person, which was cool. Yeah.
And I'm like half, so you could just take mine and give it to him.
So yeah, one of the best comments in the tweet was like, Ahmed's just one person. Yeah, it really is impossible to think about it because he's literally freaking everywhere and he's covered everything for us. So anyway,
you can't spell Ahmed without AI.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was way worse than Nick.
That's awesome.
I like Nick Grousbeck, though.
Nick Grousbeck is here to stay, for sure.
Nick Grousbeck.
Yes, he does a lot of the thumbnails. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're back tomorrow at the Garden with Game 1. So we're excited about that. And again, just stay with us. This is the run. It continues on. Hopefully a little bit more juice this time, but honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're one of those Celtics fans out there right now who's a sad girl because people aren't respecting you or calling the path easy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to get to the finals at this point. And then that's what matters.
Something to talk about.
The Celtics basically played a preseason during the regular season this year. They're ramping it up now. This is going to be good. Game 1 tomorrow. We'll be here. We hope you guys are as well. Thank you, as always, for watching. For Jimmy, Josue, Bobby, and, of course, Ahmed hanging out. Birthday boy.
Birthday boy.
Yep. We thank you guys, and we will we'll see you tomorrow.
Wait, Ahmed's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game. Horford's out. I think it's an option.
That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.